Un vēl svarīga praktiskā informācija. Nākamā saruna notiks angļu valodā. Ja kādam ir nepieciešams tulkojums pie reģistratūras galda, var droši dabūt tulkojumos aparātus, lai jūs varētu sekot līdzi un uzdot jautājumus. Paldies tiem, kuri ir atnākuši. Es ļoti priecājos. Es ceru, ka mēs jau esam arī tiešraidē. Sveicināti visi tie, kuri mums ir piesakojuši šobrīd no visām Latvijas, varbūt arī pasaules malām. Joprojām 1. decembris un konference par to, kā uzlabot mūsu veselības aprūpes sistēmu. Un pirms mēs sākam, es domāju, kā varētu mazliet izkustēties. Japāņiem ir teiciens 600 soļu pēc ēdienreizes. Es arī parasti mēģinu paturēt prātā, kad pātri pastaigāt tos 600 soļus, lai viss tā labi nosēžās. Starp citu, bija ļoti interesanti. Es pusdienu pauzē, man ļoti patīk aptaujāt dalībniekus, kā jums ir paticis, un ļoti interesanti. Vieni saka, vai cik garlaicīgi Ašrādens to pašu runā, un tas citiem vaicāji saka, vai cik labi Ašrādens norunāja. Man ļoti interesēja parasti jūsu tas domas un viedoklis, kā jums patīk konferenci, bet visi saka, jā, kad ir interesanti, ka kaut kāds vairākas lietas sanāk kopā, ka esot ļoti labi runātāji. Man liels prieks to dzirdēt. Un tiem, kuriem nekas līdz šim nebija jauns, un viss jau ir zināms, gan dati, gan tas teiktais, tad droši vien nākamais paneļa diskusija būs tas, kas būs jauns, jo mums būs starptautiski eksperti. Bet es tūdēļ viņus pieteikšu, tad mazliet sagaidīšu tos, kas vēl tā kā skatās tā kautrīgi manā virzienā, bet vēl nenāk, lai mazliet vēl kāds pienāk klāt. Bet kamēr viņi nāk, es jums varētu iemācīt vienu latviešu tautas kustēšanos, jo man nepatīk pieceļās un masē un visas tās aktivitātes, bet ir viena aktivitāte, kas man ļoti patīk, ko man iemācīja 8 gadu vecumā tautas deju skolotāji. Un tā ir viena ļoti laba izkustēšanās un arī ritma balansa noturēšana, kas saucās spriguļu sišana. Vai zini, kas ir spriguļu sišana? Es kāds ir, nē, izdaram, piesiemies kājās. Es arī to neesmu darījis ļoti sen. Spriguļu sišana latviešu tautu dejas. Jums vienam no jāpieskarās, un kā latviešiem labāk nepieskarties. Un paldies arī starptautiskajiem viesiem, kas ceļās kājās. Jūs vienu latvisku lietu iemācīsieties. Tā nav deja, bet tā ir vairāk tāda dejas elements, ko izmanto tautu dejās. Šogad dziesmu un deju svētku gads. Nu pat mēs Latvijas televīzijā izvērtējot šo sarunu arī pa dziesmu un deju svētkiem izveidojām. Tātad viens spriguls mazliet ir tā kā kājas plecu platumā un mazliet iesēžamies, kā jau dejās, vai ne? Es man neesmu dejotājs, esmu dziedātājs un violnieks, bet šo es pazīst. Tātad, kurš zina, kā ir viens spriguls? Viens spriguls ļoti vienkārši. Uzsitat, jā. Kā ir divi spriguļi? Viens spriguls, divi spriguļi. Trīs spriguļi. 1, 2, 3. Vai vēlreiz viens sprigulis, 1, 2 spriguļi, 1, 2, 3 spriguļi, 1, 2, 3. Es domāju, cik daudz no jums zina, kas ir spriguls. 4 spriguļi. 1, 5 spriguļi. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Tas tikai mazliet tā kā paslavēt sevi. 5 vēlreiz. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6 spriguļi. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Pa galvu. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Tad ļoti vienkārši. Viena roka, otra roka, plecs, galva, plecs. Un 7 spriguļi kopumā ir. Tātad. Vēlreiz. Nē, kā nebija. Šis Kraftes kungs, lūdzu. Nē. Jūs šodien solījāt, ka jūs dziedāsiet. Jūs neesat ierastis ar klavierēm. Tātad vēlreiz 1 sprigulis, 1, 2 spriguļi. 1, 2, 3 spriguļi. 1, 2, 3, 4 spriguļi. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spriguļi. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spriguļi. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 un 7 spriguļi. Uz nākamajiem deju svētkiem jūs esat gatavi. Paldies, jo es domāju, tur ir tāda laba koordinācija. Un es šo nebiju darījusi kopš 2. klases. Es vienkārši atcerējos šo aktivitāti. Paldies par to laiku. Mums tiešām ir pievienojies kuplāks skaits cilvēku. Kā es minēju, mēs turpinām konferenci ar datiem vai paneļa diskusiju, kas noteikti būs jaunums un vismaz kaut kāda jauna informācija jums, jo tajās gaidās, ko jūs rakstījāt pašā sākumā slaido, bija vēlme saņemt jaunu informāciju. Un es aicinu uz skatuvi man pievienoties Thomasu Allvinu, ko jūs jau redzējāt sākumā, Eiropas farmācijas industriju un asociāciju federācijas stratēģijas un veselības aprūpes izpildirektoru. Es aicinu jūs ieņemt vietu, kur ir mikrofons. Lūdzu, ar aplausiem. Es aicinu uz skatuvi vēl vienu Evu Susannu Dietrichu. Viņa ir Bonnas Universitātes uz pierādījumos balstītas pozicionēšanas veselības aprūpē institūta profesore. Lūdzu. Viņai, starp citu, bija ļoti daudz jautājumu iepriekšējās paneļdiskusijas laikā par datiem un izmantojamību. Un mums uz ekrāna pievienosies vēl viens brīnišķīgs kolēģis, un tas ir Rain Laane. Viņš ir Igaunijas Veselības apdrošināšanas fonda valdes priekšsēdētājs. Tātad mums būs hibrīda diskusija, kurā mēs redzam arī kolēģi no Igaunijas. Hello, good evening, good day. Labdien, Tere.
Tere, exactly. Thank you for inviting.
It's great to have you here. So I will switch to English. And if anyone needs a translation, please find the headphones. I'm glad to have you here. Thank you for coming. It's Friday, and you're here in Latvia, and you'll have to leave soon after the discussion. So you've heard the previous discussions and speeches, and you had lots of questions. And I saw you listening really carefully, and I hope that you have maybe more questions about Latvia. You can ask afterwards and in the coffee break. But I know that you have prepared presentations, each of you. So I would be very glad to hear presentations from you. And let's see with whom we could start. Who is ready to present? I think it's Eva, the first, yes? Oh no, with Rain. Rain, we will start with you actually. Rain, you have prepared your presentation on Estonian example. And the floor for next 7 minutes is yours. Maybe you can move away from the screen, I guess, if it's better for those who can see. Yes. So we can hear you very well. And there is an audience with quite a lot of people in front of you. And you're on the big screen, and the floor is yours now.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Rain Laane, and I'm the CEO of Estonian Health Insurance Fund. And our logo is the turtle or tortoise, which is on the picture. You know that the oldest tortoise, Jonathan, recently celebrated his 191st birthday, and he lives in St. Helena. Why I'm telling it and why our logo is turtle? Because our health insurance fund aspiration is really we should help people to live longer without complication, meaning healthy life. And we are really thinking and contributing to make that aspiration true. And I would love to give you 6 examples what are we doing, and we are really doing it. First one, the idea. The idea that, or the concept, I would say, healthy kids become healthy adults. Healthy choices, and when the new generation is growing, if we can influence them in the way that they will choose the healthy lifestyle, that helps the whole society. We all know that healthcare systems are challenging with the lack of money. And if we live more healthier, and it starts from everybody. Every morning you can look into the mirror and say what I will do a little bit better today. And the things are changing. Particularly in Estonia, what we are putting a lot of effort, just 2 examples. Children dental care, that if the teeth are okay, then lots of bad things starts from that. And it's a very deep area, and that's the mental health, especially mental health for youth. How to keep them in the balance, how to see and react early enough. That's the big topic. Second one picture is about the health information system. And we started in Estonia 2007-2008, National Health Record System. It's working nicely, but we are pretty soon going to launch the new one. And the concept is different because when you digitalize something which has been years on the paper, then typically you will get the digitalized paper version. And we have tons of data, which is not so easy to seek, to analyze, to use it for the science, etc. And the new version will take care about that angle, also the better user interface. And we have spent like 3 years to understand how the new system should look like. Now we are going to start building it next year. And we built this by blocks, not just everything will be ready after 1 or 2 years, smaller blocks. Third idea is the personal medicine. I think next year our topic is to really help younger ladies who has either breast cancer to discover that as early as possible. And then we would like to move also to pharmacokinetic suitable solutions for the individuals. Because we have genome database, 250,000 samples there, which we gathered a few years ago. Let's start really using it together with science and technology. And next one, and the topic we are clearly hearing today, I hope a lot, that's value-based healthcare. Because the payment models currently, fee-for-service, global budgeting, etc., I strongly believe that we should, as the health insurance fund, we should more push society to the idea that we should pay for things which make sense. And to do that, we need to start measuring using PROMs, patients reported outcome measures, PRIMs, and our colleagues will tell value-based healthcare way more deeper than I can do here, but that's a big topic for us. Last but not the least, decision support systems. 3 years ago, 2020, we launched patient-based decision support system, which our GPs, general practitioners, aka family doctors, are using. And the data is really based on the person who comes or the patient who comes. This year we launched information-based decision support systems, which is mainly for the hospitals. And we are planning 2025 to launch the population-based decision support system, which is simply said, people are using Dr. Google with the universal data. We would love to have some recommendations which people can use themselves based on their own data. Of course, they are not going to diagnose themselves, but that helps. And my last picture here, by the way, all the pictures are done by lovely artificial intelligence, the Meet Journey Discord. And one of our roles as a health insurance fund is also supervising the usage of public funds. And we are widely using also machine learning and automation, because we have 10 million healthcare invoices which we are compensating. And already 1.5 years our machines are checking and pointing out some suspicious invoices which then the humans are looking. Unfortunately, 95% of these findings ends up with the either claim or the credit invoice. And that's also the topic where we can do more automation, announce it, and then keep our limited health insurance money in or more safer hands. Ladies and gentlemen, that's a very brief overview of what we are doing here in Estonia, and looking forward to having lots of questions. Thank you. Paldies.
Thank you. We have a Slido, and I'm inviting everyone to write questions or comments on the presentations. But now I would like to invite Thomas. You already gave a speech this morning, but you have prepared a small presentation as well. I mean, from the good examples of excellence in the healthcare from Europe. So let us see your presentation on the screen.
Yes. So maybe I should stand up. Thank you very much. And so, yeah, I will talk a little bit about, innovation and how do we get really innovative therapies. How do we get access to them? Because there's so much new groundbreaking therapies and innovation coming, but sometimes this comes with the new types of challenges that we have to meet with new type of models. And I think Rain already talked a little bit about this. So on the next slide, if we can, or yes. I mean, just first to say, I think the good news is that the industry, the global R&D model of the industry is continuing to work really at scale and going into more and more challenging and exciting areas. Some diseases have, as you know, already almost been fixed. I mean, HIV you can now live with as a chronic disease without the same life expectancy as everyone else. Many types of cancers we have improved the survival chances considerably. Some cancers more challenging. But we are entering into more and more challenging areas. Still a lot of research going on in oncology, new types of therapies, new types of modes of actions. Also, when it comes to neurodegenerative diseases like multiple sclerosis, new therapies are in the pipeline. Also against major depressive disorder. Mental health was mentioned. Of course, not everything in mental health can be medicalized, but there are instances where new medicines can be helpful and maybe with less side effects than some of the treatments used today for different mental health disorders. We also have disease-modifying therapies, for instance, for Alzheimer's disease. Clearly a very challenging area scientifically to do breakthroughs in and also prove these breakthroughs. But some new therapies approved in the US. We'll see also in Japan. We'll see when they come to Europe. And also, of course, the whole area on sort of gene therapies and cell therapies, where you really try to fix genes that are not functioning properly, so you can address genetic diseases, genetic disorders. So this is, of course, stuff like that was sort of science fiction 20 years ago or so, but are now reality. And on the next slide, a lot of the pipeline in the innovative industry is for rare conditions, and this is, of course, and it was mentioned earlier in the panel, rare disease patients and many of them living without a treatment. But there is a lot of research being done on orphan diseases, and a lot of this is in oncology. Around half is for rare cancers. But again, very innovative. Advanced therapies like cell and gene therapy is gaining importance here. Still a small slice of the pie, but it's sort of growing and is sort of maybe the most advanced type of therapies that we now have. And for instance, CAR T therapies that are already being rolled out for some blood cancers and with great effects, where you can really train the body, train the immune system to learn to recognize the tumors and fight them more effectively by basically reprogramming how the immune system works. So really science fiction stuff. So on the next slide, so I think we talk about value, we talk about value-based healthcare. And we want to create value. So what do we mean by that? And I think We like to talk about value in I think, 3 main categories, I think is helpful. First, of course, we have value to patients, and we develop medicines for patients. So this is, of course, the most important. And so increased survival from a cancer, better quality of life, we should not forget. Some older cancer medicines have big side effects, toxicities, it's difficult to take those treatments. New therapies can come with less side effects. That's a huge value that improves the quality of life. Functional status. So, for instance, for maybe an MS patient, what can you do? Can you do the normal things that you want to do in your life? Can you go out and pick up your mail? Can you go out and see your friends for coffee? These type of just daily activities. And also just improvements in the process of care. Value can be to have a tablet instead of an injection, for instance. That's also innovation that matters for patients. But of course, value to healthcare systems. And I think it was already mentioned, hospitalizations cost a lot. I think someone said that, all our hospitals are full all the time. And of course, this is a burden on the health systems. This is a burden on the healthcare professionals. By using innovative therapies and medicines, you can many times prevent complications that would otherwise lead to hospitalization. So if you can make sure that people with diabetes, for instance, have a treatment that they take and that they can manage their diabetes, you can avoid complications that are very painful for the patients, like amputations or problems with your eyes, and you also don't have to end up in hospital, which is also very costly. But then, of course, also for society. I mean, healthy patients, healthy people can get back to work, and also don't have to be sort of on sickness benefits. So it's really a win-win for the entire society, and that's a sort of triple win that we try to achieve. So on the next slide, I put here as an example, how you can look at some of these innovative therapies. So in this case, a gene therapy for hemophilia, so bleeding disorder, and where today the standard of care for a patient with hemophilia has been to take injections or have intravenous treatments several times per week. So every 3rd to 7th day, you need to go to a clinic, to a hospital, and get an intravenous treatment to replace this protein that makes the blood clot, so you don't have these bleeding events. This is, of course, extremely burdensome for any patient, and is, of course, a lot of, so a big treatment burden and a huge impact on the patient's quality of life, of course, always having to be afraid of having a bleeding event. So these gene therapies that are now being tested and rolled out is sort of a one-off treatment where you fix the genes that should have produced this protein naturally, because of course this is supposed to happen naturally in our bodies. And if you can fix that, then the body can start producing these proteins themselves. So what you have is a one-off treatment. Instead of this chronic intravenous treatments for the rest of your life, you have a one-off, very advanced treatment that hopefully restores some of this natural capacity. And then, you won't need these chronic therapies, or at least not as much of them. So this is, of course, great for the patient. You will save a lot of money on these chronic treatments. You don't have to go to the hospital. So you can really make a much more efficient sort of patient pathway. And of course, for societies, people being able to go back to work or not be away from work as much. So again, a huge win-win. But so on the next slide, when we have some of these new therapies that come, of course, they come with new challenges for healthcare systems, because most of our health systems and pricing and reimbursement systems for medicines, they are not made for dealing with these new type of therapies. So in the case of the gene therapy, it's a one-off treatment, but it comes with a much higher cost than a normal just pill for a chronic disease. So it's a big investment, but it will pay off in the long run because you don't need these chronic therapies. How does the system handle that? Sometimes it also comes with an uncertainty around the clinical benefit. So since many of these therapies are researched for people with rare conditions, so you don't have that many people participating in a clinical trial, it's not the same that when you come with a medicine that's been tested on thousands of people and you can compare it to different control groups. Maybe you only have a single-arm trial. You can see there is an effectiveness, something is happening, it gives a benefit. But how can we be certain that this will also be in the patients we have in our country? Do we know that it will be a long-term effect? Is this gene therapy, is a lifelong cure, or is it a number of years? You know, we need answers to these questions, and of course the payers in the country, so the NHS here in Latvia will of course have questions about this. What are we investing in? Is it worth the money? And also some of these therapies, like some new cancer therapies, can be used for different types of tumors. So you can have what you call a tumor agnostic therapy that you can use for different types of cancers, and maybe it works a bit differently for different cancers, very effective in some, not in others. Some personal therapies that works very well for some patients that have a certain mutation, not at all in others. So there's an evidence requirement step here where we need evidence. So these pose new type of challenges, and so how do we solve that? So on the next slide, we have, on the bottom here, some of the new models that we are talking about and already heard about a bit today, since the traditional pricing and reimbursement models cannot always fit. But so we need to work with combination-based pricing when we use cancer therapies in combination. So how do we price the combination if we can't price the individual products, especially if they come from different companies? You need new models for that. Indication-based pricing. So if you have a cancer drug, but it works differently for different types of cancers, they should be priced differently because they bring different value to patients and to the system. So is the system set up to do that? Do we capture the right data, the indication-based data? Outcomes-based payments, so paying for results, and this was already mentioned by Ryan and many others. So paying for the actual result in the actual patients, and overtime payments. So can we pay in installments? So if you have this very pricey gene therapy, instead of paying the entire sum immediately, you sort of pay it in lump sums. So we need to look at this more as investments, like when you buy a car or a house or something else. And also subscription payments, or what's called Netflix models. So you pay a lump sum and you get all the medicines for all your patients. So these are all new types of innovative agreements. And on the next slide, there are, of course, a number of barriers to implement this, and this is all over Europe, of course, that we need to work on to be able to implement these new types of access agreements. Of course, there are some legislative barriers where in some systems you can't, for instance, do payments and installments. You have to pay everything at once. It's a yearly health budget. You need to pay all your invoices that year, and you just can't split it up. So you need to look into that. Of course, the data infrastructure have been mentioned many times. If you're going to do an outcomes-based agreement where you pay for the actual outcomes in the real patients, you need to track those outcomes, and you need to monitor these patients. Which is, of course, an administrative burden, but can also be very beneficial. And I think some experiences from having these outcomes-based agreements in other parts in Europe have been that when you monitor how it goes for the patients and they have to report their health status, not only will you get information for the payers, they know that we're getting what we pay for, but you also actually get better care, because that monitoring is a constant dialogue. You check up the patients, and you actually get a higher quality of care. And then, of course, you do need an overall system change, and you need sort of a political willingness to be able to implement these new types of models. So you need all the stakeholders to come together and work on this. And on the next slide, yes, this is very quickly, but just some principles from the side of the industry, how we want to approach this. Of course, these models should be there to speed up patient access to new therapies. It should be based on value for all stakeholders. We need to work on this in collaboration, and pharma companies and payers need to agree on, here we need a new model, here we need something new to be able to ensure access to patients. Transparency, there should be more transparency around these models, and maybe also of the data coming from that. And here I think it's a huge opportunity for collaboration between different countries, and where countries like Latvia can also learn from what's happening in other countries. If they know that these agreements are there, oh, they just did an innovative agreement on this gene therapy, let's check with them how they did it. Maybe not all the commercial confidential details, but how was it set up? Did you get good data out of it? Can some synergies be found here? So I think there's more room for collaboration between European countries. And then, of course, to work together to set up this infrastructure to collect data if that doesn't already exist. And on the next slide, which might be my final slide, yes, so as I said, you know, this is already happening all over Europe, and there's a lot of good examples, but also, of course, challenges. But so, for instance, I mean, Italy, of course, has been famous for all the registries of cancer drugs, and they have been using these over time models for CAR-Ts for blood cancers, so which is this cell and gene therapy for blood cancer, where they pay in installments. And they have regular checkup points with the patients at the time of administration, after 6 months, after a year, and only if it's shown to still work in the patient, you get the company gets the next payment, and they have these registries that allows for this outcomes-based tracking, and we have, for instance, we have these subscription models. I mentioned the Netflix model, so both in the UK and in Denmark, they have been using for the new therapies for cystic fibrosis. They have made these type of Netflix deals with the company who is the kind of main developer of cystic fibrosis drugs, to say that, okay, for this lump sum, we want access for all our patients for your current and future therapies. And it's sort of a yearly lump sum, and it doesn't matter how many patients need it. So the company will supply the medicines to all patients that might need it for this indication. So it's a lump sum that covers the entire country, which is, of course, also a way for the National Health Service to keep the budget under control. It's predictable, and they know how much this will cost in the end. So these are just a few examples. I will stop here because I know we need to get into the next presentation. I have time for discussion, but I hope that this gives a bit of an overview of what's happening elsewhere in Europe. Thank you.
Actually, it raises a lot of questions. We can have applause of the presentation. Thank you. There are many questions, and in case you have any, please write them down on Slido so I can ask to Thomas. Eva, thank you for being here and having your German experience, and everything is evidence-based in your job. So we are eager to see your presentation. Please, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much. For logistic reasons, I stay here on my seat. So thank you very much for the invitation to this interesting conference and beautiful Riga. You asked me to report some examples of excellence in the German healthcare system. And I was very pleased to be given this task because in the German healthcare system, people tend to talk everything down. There are complaints everywhere, be it from doctors, pharmacists, or pharmaceutical industry. It's almost always about the distribution of money. In the case of doctors, it is often also about the bureaucratic burden or digitalization, but here too, the question very quickly comes to the point before, who pays for it? Only the German patient representatives see things a little bit differently, and rightly so. 92% of all authorized drugs are available in Germany, and on average 130 days after authorization. In both respects, Germany is the leader in Europe. Practically all new drugs are paid for by health insurance funds, and that from the time of launch. We don't have a fourth hurdle, and doctors can generally prescribe all drugs to all patients. In addition, the healthcare system covers 82% of pharmaceutical expenditures, and co-payments as a consequence are quite low. They are a maximum of €10 per package of a drug. Many of these achievements can of course be attributed to the favorable economic situation in Germany in the past, but I would like to present 3 things that we have actively contributed to. These are the cost containment measures for generics, then the rapid benefit assessment of new drugs, in particular coupled with traffic light systems in the doctor software and discount agreements, and our quite far-reaching outpatient specialist system, which puts the principle of outpatient over inpatient care into practice. So let me start with the latter because it is the basis for these other 2. Since the cost of hospitalization has always been very high, as many patients as possible should be treated outside hospitals. To this end, we have an extensive network of outpatient medical specialists who traditionally work in individual practices and increasingly also in small or also larger corporations. Over 40% of all practicing doctors work outside hospitals and provide a large proportion of medical care there. So we have 170,000 hospital cases on the one hand, and on the other hand around 370 million doctor-patient contacts outside hospitals per year. And yet they make only half as much expenditure as hospitals. For this reason, the German healthcare system intensively pursues the principle of outpatient over inpatient care. However, the high number of doctor-patient contacts outside of hospitals also means that a large proportion of pharmaceutical expenditure is incurred there. And as everywhere in the world, this has risen steadily over the decades. However, despite an aging population, the number of prescriptions here in the point has not risen in the last years. The reason for these increases was rather the high cost of new drugs, which has risen exponentially in the last 3 or 4 years. Over the last 30 years, we have tried various approaches to control drug expenditure in Germany. For example, with the exception of children, most OTC drugs have been removed from the benefits catalog, and you can also see when this was. It was about 2004. Here the prescription numbers and also cost went down a little bit. Then doctors were requested if they prescribed expensive Me Too drugs, and the prices of drugs were frozen a few years ago. However, the most effective efforts were certainly made with generics. A reference price system was introduced already back in 1988 to counter the increase in pharmaceutical expenditure. It is purely a price regulation instrument that neither restricts nor excludes prescriptions. Firstly, the GBA determines groups of active ingredients for which reference prices can be set. And the statutory health insurance funds, or the umbrella organization, then sets an upper limit for the reimbursement price for each group. The health insurance funds cover the cost up to the amount of this reference price, and if a drug is more expensive, then the patient has to pay themselves the difference. But as German patients are used to not paying for drugs, you don't find a lot of drugs in the German healthcare system that exceed these reference prices. In 2022, 75% of generics were covered by such reference prices, and as a result, over 8 billion euros are now saved annually through this reference price system. This corresponds to about 17% of a total drug expenditure, so quite a lot. The remaining 25% of generics that do not have a reference price are subject to a price moratorium. This freezes prices at the 2009 level. So if a manufacturer increases its price above this upper limit, then it must pay the difference back to the health insurance fund. In addition to all this, discount agreements apply to about 74% of all generics. So another discount on top of all this. And we tried to move prescriptions of generics very early. So we tried to have as many generic prescriptions as possible at a very early point in time. This was done via target agreements for the doctors, recourse, then bonus and malus systems. We tried both. And of course an out idem regulation, according to which the pharmacist must make a substitution unless the doctor explicitly excludes it. And as a result, the majority of outpatient care is now provided by generics. In 2022, they accounted for nearly 80% of prescription drugs for people with statutory health insurance, but only for 17% of expenditure. But there was also a need to control the price of new drugs. Until 2011, we had free pricing in Germany, and all new drugs were reimbursed at this price. So companies were free to choose their prices. And this was, of course, an important reason for the pharmaceutical industry to launch their products as early as possible in Germany. In 2011, a very early and rapid benefit assessment was implemented by law. It does not represent a fourth hurdle, but it serves exclusively as a basis for a price negotiation at the national level. And this assessment is very quick. It starts at the time of launch of the product and is completed after 6 months, including a statement and hearing procedure. However, the medicines are already available at the time of launch, and at this time also at the price set by the pharmaceutical company. The negotiated price applies only after 6 months. And here too, savings of around 8 billion euro are calculated for 2023. However, the negotiated discounts have, of course, been priced in by many companies in the past. So if they expect a 20% discount, a 20% plus safety margin was, of course, added in advance. These savings are therefore more of a theoretical nature. Orphan drugs also have a special status in Germany. They had an additional benefit by law, and there was no price anchor. So also in Germany, the prices for orphan drugs were very high. And the new law is now to put a stop to this. The price range will then be set very narrowly. This offers real potential for savings. However, as usual in Germany, various companies have already gone to the court, and we will see what happens in the next time. Apart from that, from this AMNOG price negotiation, there exist discounts on top of this national price with individual health insurers. These discounts are not extremely high, but doctors often have a traffic light system in their prescribing software, and in these discounted trucks are marked in green. And this also applies for high-priced new trucks. So if doctors can prescribe these trucks without any problems, without any risk of recourse, and if they reach certain quotas of these green trucks, they even receive bonuses. This has, for example, been implemented in a dermatological contract, which covers at the moment about half of the population in Germany. So to summarize, our early benefit assessment is very good and is very transparent, but so far it has not achieved the savings we had hoped for in Germany. The situation is different with reference prices and generic control in Germany. They are definitely a success story and are currently also extended to biosimilars.
Thank you. Yes, we have some questions before the audience says thank you. And I hope that Rain is still here. Are you, Rain?
Yes, I am.
Hello. Is it okay if we still sit like this, or we need to change? It's okay, thank you. So there is a question for you after your presentation. Who is the leader, the product owner of the projects for digitalization in the healthcare system in Estonia?
Thank you for the question. It's wise to put the project leader close to the money, or the institution who finances the whole project. And in many cases in Estonia, we are financing it, so it sits in our house. We have established the service-based management or leadership, and we have tons of service managers, and they are responsible for being the business owner of these projects. And it really works because there is a direct link to the financing the part.
Thank you. So this panel is based on the analysis of examples and the cases which are motivating to develop the health care system. And therefore, there's a question for each participant. What is essential to reach excellence in healthcare? And if possible, name your example. So what is needed to reach this excellence, in your opinion? Maybe very instrumental. Thomas.
Wow, it's a big question. I think that, you know, when it comes to, you know, if I go back to, you know, the different types of value and access models that I was talking about, I think one of the key conditions, you know, we can talk about the data infrastructure and all of this, but one of the key conditions is that all the stakeholders get around the table and agree that we need to do this, because many countries are, you know, they're stuck in their old ways of working, and you have a system, and we all know that if we have a system, we like to continue working in that system, and you know, we don't necessarily like to change. But I think the sort of political will is needed, and the payers, the NHS, and the companies, they need this space to collaborate and come up with these new models. So you need to look at what are the legal hurdles, what are the financial hurdles or administrative, and of course you need to have the data collection there. But so I think that one key word is flexibility, and we often talk now when we are revising the EU regulatory system for approving new medicines, which the Commission has launched, and you know how the EMA is looking at authorizing new medicine. They talk about introducing what they call a regulatory toolbox. When you have a new therapy that is sort of completely new and the evidence looks different, and it doesn't fit in a normal pathway, that there's a sandbox, there's a regulatory sandbox where the regulatory experts can come together and say, okay, how do we tackle this? And I think something similar is needed at the pricing and reimbursement level, that there is a flexibility where if the payer, if the NHS thinks that, well, we want this new therapy, but we need to find a new way to pay for it, that there is that willingness and flexibility in the system to do that.
Yes, thank you. Eva?
Well, I think the basic prerequisite is certainly money. This is true as well for the quality of training of health professionals, as for the provision of care, and also for the health status of a population. But we all know, of course, that financial resources are limited, and the demands of patients, of providers, of industry increase also with available resources. An example from drug provision. So I think that the price regulation was, at least for Germany, the only way forward to reaching a better excellence, be it rebates, tenders, negotiations, reference prices. And because we tried it other ways with volume regulation, prescription regulation, but doctors did not go along with it. They wanted to be free in deciding what to use. And political parties were afraid of losing votes due to measures that affected patients, so this was also not a way to go. And whenever we evaluated drugs critically, then the manufacturers sent their lawyers into the field, and the doctors also did not take these evaluations into account. So in the end, I think a good way is these price regulations, because companies can actively influence the price negotiation, the tenders. They have an active role there, and that is also something they accept somehow. And the other point is that in the case of discounts or reference pricing, it affects the competitors equally. So it's not a certain disadvantage or advantage for a company, but it's set for all. And this was better than the other measures we tried.
Rain, we already named some of the things which are necessary to reach the excellence, and I assume you will mention digitalization maybe, but what else we haven't mentioned today that you think is important and crucial?
Okay, let's start from people, because when we want to drive to the excellence in the healthcare, we need to do something for our customers, which mean Estonian or European people, that they could be happy. How they can be happy? They are happy when the queue or the waiting time for getting the help is rather short, a few days up to a week. And the second thing is that all the newest and wonderful medicines are available. Luckily in Germany, as we heard, they are pretty soon available. In Latvia, Estonia, we can't say yet the same. And maybe I will bring one example, what we are doing. We are using, and we want to use it way more, is the medicine risk sharing system. So basically the pharma company or the producer also shares the risk. If that medicine doesn't work or has some bad influences, etc., then they will take the cost. If that works really well, then health insurance fund is paying. We have several cases where with the good pharma companies, we have achieved the agreement, and it's nicely working. Patients are happy, and also we are happy because we can better plan our finances. And we know that this is part of the value-based healthcare. If that medicine doesn't work, then we should not pay or shouldn't pay it from our common health money. That's very simple. But Eva, you are absolutely right. Digitalization is a key. Even that system, you need to have some digital system to handle it. Otherwise, it's rather difficult. Thanks.
Thank you. We have some questions incoming in Slido. Let's see if we can answer them. How high is the level of digitalization for patients in your countries? Does a patient need to visit a specialist with their medical history, or doctors have it? I think this is for Latvia a very important question about digitalization. Maybe Thomas, you can compare something from other countries or mention something good as example.
Yeah, it's a good question, and I think it differs a lot between different European countries. I think so I live in Belgium, but my home country is Sweden, which has fairly good digitalized system and with electronic health records. But also in Sweden, you have the different regions in Sweden often having their own electronic medical record, and they like to have their own system. And I think there are work to implement something at a national level, because of course that's what you need to do a fully interoperable system. So I think it varies, but I think generally fairly good. I think also what's been along in Sweden for a long time is the registries. So we have a tradition of disease registries, often driven by healthcare professionals. So for different, a diabetes registry, a cardiovascular registry, different cancer registries, where all patients are followed up on. And of course, that's a huge potential also for use in research. And also since there is also a common patient registry that is managed by the authorities, where all the patients, you can find all the patients and also which medicines they have. Then you can start to connect all these data points and see which medicines is a patient on, what are the outcomes, and you can follow up. So I think there's certainly a huge potential in that. But I think that a lot of countries struggle with the implementation of really good comprehensive electronic health records that contain everything, independent on which doctor you have been seeing. And I think from the, if I dare say so, my experience so far from the Belgian health system, which is a bit more limited, I'm not sure that the different doctors know, if I will go to a different doctor, that they see which medicines I have or what I have been consulting for earlier.
Yes, Eva, you want to mention anything about Germany? About digitalization?
Yeah.
Do you need to visit a doctor or?
Yeah, well, in Germany we have a very low level of digitalization, and there are many reasons for it. So, for example, we discussed the introduction of e-prescription already 30 years ago, and it's now just being implemented a little bit, but it's still in the beginning. And one reason is, of course, data protection. This is a very important topic for the German population. Another point is certainly transparency, because in Germany we have a different system. It's a system of self-government, of health insurance funds and physicians. It has tradition, more than 100 years. So these two negotiate everything in Germany. What is being reimbursed and what are the fees for doctors and so on. And so they are on the same level. And if you increase, of course, transparency, then health insurance funds might be able to control what doctors are doing. And this is something physicians do not want, as one point. There are many others, but so digitalization is not very far.
And there is actually another question, a practical one. Does the doctor enter patient data into the system themselves, or this is done by assistant? Maybe Rain, you can comment on that. How is it in Estonia?
Yes, thank you. We are pushing, or we have pushed, and I guess now it has effects that doctors, even the GPs, family doctors, are writing themselves. So they are meeting themselves, patients, and the nurse is having her own or his own appointments. About the health record, we do have already 10 plus years the national health record system that everything is digitalized. There is no paperwork anymore. But still the hospitals, they have their own systems. And although there is a linkage or link between hospital healthcare system and the national healthcare system, it's just one click. Not all the doctors are not always doing it, because there is some competition sense that, okay, this is my patient, I want to keep them into my hospital. But society demands that that's a normal practice, and law also says that everything should be in the national health record. So I guess the majority is. At the same time, the challenge is that this national health record should be available 24/7, and the data amount is growing, and also we need to find decent financing to keep it up and running. And there is also the future solution, which I can recommend you look cloud. Manage your risks and then move to the cloud, and then there won't be any performance issues as well.
Yes.
On the topic of e-prescriptions, since that was mentioned, I remember in Belgium when I went to the doctor and needed a prescription, and the doctor said, yeah, we have now introduced a new electronic prescription system in Belgium, so it's new, so you're going to get that. And then he printed out a paper and gave to me with a QR code. And I was like, this is still a paper. Is it? Yeah, but it's a QR code, and they scan it in the pharmacy. And it's like, okay, well, it's some bit of progress. Sometimes this, E doesn't always mean the same everywhere. But you know, in Sweden, where there's an e-prescription system, there's enough to go to the pharmacy with your ID card. Because, and then you have your personal number, you know, everyone has a personal number in Sweden, so the ID card, and then they can look into the system and they see that, okay, he's been prescribed this and this stuff, right? So, well.
Yes, so there's one concern from the comments saying that the demands of value-based system can lead to a tougher, less sustaining work environment for physicians. How to avoid it? Is there any comment on that? Maybe some advice or inspiration that it works and it can be done without?
I mean, I think it's a fair point that often comes up, that how do we do all this data collection without giving even more burden on healthcare professionals? And I think, you know, one solution has to be in the digital tools themselves. We need smart digital tools, and we need system where you can enter data once and you don't have parallel systems, because sometimes doctors need to report to different registries that comes from different demandeurs, and that's of course very inefficient. So I think interoperability is part of it, but I think there are probably also other stuff around how you organize the staff that I'm less of an expert in, but who is doing what in a hospital, and what kind of roles, responsibilities do you have?
Mm-hmm. The question
Eva,
always
if I can add, just a story. I met recently my French colleague who is running the health insurance in France. And he said, Rain, you are doing so great in Estonia. You have all computers and everything is in the systems, etc. And in France, there are some GP centers where there are not even computers on every desk. And I said that we are dreaming a similar situation, that when you, as a patient, go to the family physician office, that maybe there shouldn't be a computer, because doctor is looking 15 minutes computer and then looking 10 seconds you and saying, okay, go to the pharmacy and I prescribe you a medicine. Instead of that one, there should be a microphone. And artificial intelligence is writing everything down in your own language. Also writing the epicrizes, and you can do and search and do the science based on that one. And that is the future, and this future is not far away. It's almost knocking on the door tomorrow.
Hopefully. We need to end in 2 minutes, so I will just, yes, you have applause, Rain, you don't hear it maybe, but The doctors here really liked what you said. So before we end, I would like to quickly, kind of end this on an enthusiastic and positive note, and I would like to ask quickly about practical recommendations on how to, for the progress towards excellence, maybe based on the examples given. It's like a sum up. Thomas, I'm looking at you.
Yes, I mean, I think it's again, you need to have all the stakeholders around the table. I think this type of conferences is really good, and sit down with all the stakeholders in a big room and not let people out until you have agreed on what's needed here. And I think that so the political will is important, and the will for all the players in the system. And I think that the data and digitalization is clearly an important point, and it's come up time and time again. And I think that one of the opportunities for a country like Latvia is that in a comparatively smaller country, there's potentially, like Estonia, easier to actually implement a new system and get it implemented everywhere if there's will. I think there's probably much more difficult to do it in Germany, where you already have legacy systems and different lenders doing different things, and where it's sort of
we have some
more
advantage
fragmented.
here.
Yes,
we have some advantage. That's good to hear. Thank you, Thomas. Eva.
Yeah, try to find a quick and easy solution and not the complicated way. So try to find a straightforward solution. So data is a great thing, but there's a lot around data, how to define who should evaluate and so on. This is a very complicated long-term approach, so try to look for the short-term ones.
Thank you. That's a good advice. Rain?
Yes, I have very easy idea, easy to remember. Everybody who works in the healthcare system, when in the morning or during the day, when he or she asks the question, who is my customer? Because I'm coming from the business. Who is my customer? And the right answer is the customer is the citizen of the country, the patient who needs help, and let's help. And in that moment, things are turning better.
Thank you. So just to sum up a little bit, thank you for the presentations and also the ideas. So in Latvia, maybe it's important to reach this excellence is to have the political will, finances and price regulations, flexibility, availability of medicaments and proper digitalization, business perspective and shortcuts. Yes. Simplicity. So thank you so much, Rain, Eva, and Thomas, for joining us today. Paldies par daudziem jautājumiem, ko mēs saņēmām. Varam arī ar aplausiem. Once again, applause. Yes, yes. And mums ir tagad pauze 15 minūtes. Kafijas pauze ir kaut kas arī gards, izkustieties. Diemžēl runātāji Tomasam jāskrien ir uz lidostu, bet droši uzjautājiet jautājumus varbūt Evai, vai arī pie durvīm var noķert un kādu jautājumu uzdot. Liels paldies par jūsu aktivitāti, Slaido!